Coming up on today's edition of the Art Business Morning Show, we're talking about the pivot, okay? And specifically, a quick intro, the pivot defined. We're going to get into some historical examples. We're going to get into some art examples. And then we're going to get into how to contemplate subject matter areas and really just how to get started. All right. Show music. Get playing. Another new Art Business Morning. What is this? This is the show, okay, that will put you on the path to a six-figure a year plus art business. And depending on where you're watching this, please do subscribe. If YouTube's your jam, subscribe on YouTube. If Instagram's your jam, subscribe on Instagram and Facebook. You know the drill. Please do follow us on Facebook because we're releasing these guys sometimes 1 and 2 days a week. They're very up to date and relevant. And boy, is today's subject material even perhaps more so relevant. The concept of pivoting is just so amazing. There's so much to love about it. It's one of these concepts, not new. It's not new in the sense that, you know, entrepreneurs, business people, and yes, artists and photographers, okay, have been doing this throughout history and have done several pivots. Back in the day, didn't have a snazzy buzzword. Now it does. So we use it. We say pivoting, right? And, you know, it's not something that's really often taught or talked about. It's, you know, it's barely even mentioned. You know, there's not a class in business school that I'm aware of, let alone art or photography school, that talks about pivoting, that defines it, that explains how important it is to do it, right? And you know, I also love about this concept. There's so much to love about it. You know, just like with the concept of live streaming in the socials, what do we do here at ASF? Okay, we advocate you do a thing, and then we teach you to do a thing, and then we lead by example. Okay, we either have done it or more than likely are doing it constantly. In the case of live streaming, we're doing it right now, right? What about pivoting historically? Art Storefronts started out as a company that made software for print studios, okay? For people that were running print studios that had printers and were reproducing fine art. We pivoted to creating websites for artists and photographers, right? We pivoted again for providing education for artists and photographers. So it used to be a website solution. We pivoted to offering the best education for artists and photographers online, right? That was a pivot. Then we realized that not all artists and photographers want to do their marketing all the time. So we pivoted to an in-house marketing agency. And, you know, we will likely ourselves as a business pivot again this year, probably multiple times, right? Like, you know, do you need your dog walked? It's an honest question. If we believe that by offering a nationwide, and Canada, we'll never leave out Canada, dog walking service would drastically help our customers improve and get better at what they're doing, guess what we're going to do? We're going to pivot to dog walking. Okay. The larger point is that you have the ability to do this and that we are practitioners in it. We are practicing what we preach. I take a great deal of pride in not being in a situation where it's like, do as I say, but not as I do, right? You know, the private actor that sits down and has a lecture about global warming and then flies home on a jet, right? Like, do as I say, not as I do. We're doing it as a business, Art Storefronts, regularly. Yet another reason why I love this, why we're going to be making it a mainstay sort of our educational experience going forward. We're gonna hammer it on the podcast. We're gonna hammer it on the live shows. We're gonna hammer it on our office hour sessions for for our customers. And that's this notion underpinning it. Why? The pivot, understanding it, getting good at it is as important for the person that has sold absolutely nothing, okay, has not sold a single solitary piece, as it is for somebody that's selling multiple six figures of art a year, okay? And, you know, moreover, perhaps most importantly, it's just another marketing and business muscle. Like any muscle, it needs to be exercised regularly. Doing so will strengthen it. It'll make it easier to do so more often, more effectively. So let's define the pivot, okay? A pivot in terms of startup business jargon. And I quote, a structured course correction designed to test a new hypothesis and a new hypothesis about the product and or business model. That's like a formal startup level definition. A structured course correction designed to test a new hypothesis about the product and business model. Let's do it out of business jargon and put it into art and photography jargon. Testing additional styles, subject materials, niches, media types, service offerings, in short, revenue sources that have a potential to vastly exceed what you're selling currently. Okay. And as business owners, we're faced with essentially two options. We can pivot or we can persevere. Pivot, we have covered, we're about to cover. Persevere is sticking with what you have. You keep working on trying to build a valuable business with the product and hypothesis, i.e., I live next to the Smoky Mountains, and all I have are landscape photos of the Smoky Mountains. And I'm going to continue selling these landscape photos of the Smoky Mountains and not do anything else for the rest of my career. That would be an example of persevering, right? Not doing any pivots. And as you think through this notion of pivot or persevere, you got to ask yourself the question, right? And everyone's going to be in a couple of different levels. Perhaps you've been attempting to sell your particular subject material and style, your niche, if you like, for quite some time. You've gotten that art, that photography in front of hundreds of people's eyeballs, right? You've shown it to a bunch of people and you've had zero sales. You've had zero warm leads, i.e., hey, Patrick, that was really interesting. What are the prices? You've had, really zero activity, really no inquiries. No one's bought it, especially not named mom, dad, brother, sister, family, friends, right? You've been unable to sell the work to strangers. Okay. It's pretty clear then. It's time for you to pivot. But what about the folks that are seeing mild levels of success, right? You've been attempting to sell your photography or art for quite some time. You sold it to some folks not named mom, dad, brother, sister, family, friends, right? And you're excited, you're enthused by the fact that you sold some art and photography, but the business is not mapping to your expectations, right? You are not quitting your day job. You're still working, you're still grinding. It's not bringing in enough income. You feel like you're working harder than the revenue that you're getting back. Okay. And there's a fantastic analogy for this. So what do you do in that situation, right? You sold a couple of pieces, you've been at it for a while, you phoned in some marketing, the business is just not growing to where you want. This puts us into the monkey analogy. Okay. What does a monkey do in the forest, in the rainforest, traversing through? They have a hold of one branch and they swing to another branch. Okay. If the other branch is not as firm or firmer than the one they just let go of, then they don't let go of the branch they have. Okay. So if we think like monkeys, we can do the same thing. That branch you have your hand on is your current business with your current style. It is your landscape photos of the Smoky Mountains, right? So you're going to stay holding onto that branch, and the pivot is going to be trying some new styles. You're going to take photos of lakes in the Smoky Mountains. You're going to take photos of the squirrels in the Smoky Mountains, or you're going to do a complete 180. You're going to move to Delray Beach, Florida, and you're going to take photos of the Florida Panhandle and the Gulf, right? Like that would be a complete pivot, right? A new branch to try. And all the while, you don't have to let go of the branch you're on, and you can be trying these things, looking for a firmer, better branch, a branch that potentially has more ROI for your business, right? So that's kind of a way to think about it if you're in the middle. But what about if you've been attempting to sell art and you have a ton of attention, a ton of eyeballs, your sales are going really well? How could it possibly be important for you? Because you always need to be testing new ideas. And more often than not, what do we discover? The people that are in this particular situation, they're pivoting all the time anyway. That's how they got there in the first place, right? You can never stop with this concept of the pivot. You can never stop pivoting. And I mentioned up front that let's talk about some historical examples. Okay. I will go old school to start out, and then I'll come back to some more new school, techie type of ones. But let's play a little game. Okay. Little game called What Company Am I? All right. Ready? It's going to be fun. I began life in the post-Depression 1930s as a wall cleaner, designed to clean the black residue that coal heaters left on walls. However, less than 2 decades later, Oil and gas heaters replace the coal. There's no more black soot on the walls. There's no more black soot on the walls, and the business was going down the tubes. But one of the founder's sisters-in-law, okay, she was a teacher, and she said she'd been using the product in arts and craft class, and the children could make ornaments with it, and they loved it. What company am I? Play-Doh. Play-Doh. Huge pivot. How long have they been around? Long time now selling that product, right? They meant to be cleaning walls. That was the branch that they had access to. They pivoted to another one, and it ended up changing everything. Okay, next one. Founded in 1938 as a company that moved dried fish and flour from Korea to China. We went through a series of transitions in subsequent decades, selling insurance, textiles, and then electronics. Samsung. We started out and began as a maker of photographic paper and photography equipment. Okay, this one's close to home. We were originally called the Haloid Company. We licensed some technology, came out with the machine in 1959. Today, the whole world knows our company name, Xerox, right? You don't make copies, you Xerox them. Another one. We started at the end of the 19th century. I had no idea this company was this old, by the way. The end of the 19th century selling playing cards. Later, we messed around with taxis and even ramen noodles. Then we created Mario and Luigi. What are we? Nintendo, right? So there's some classic examples of pivots. And these are huge pivots, right? Modern day, YouTube started out as a video dating site. Starbucks started out selling espresso machines, right? PayPal started out where you would take two Palm Pilots and be able to send each other money by beaming it, right? Amazon sold books. Airbnb, okay, look at their stock and how much money they've made, ridiculous. Started out renting rooms for people that showed up at conferences, and there were air mattresses in the living room, hence the air in Airbnb, right? So, let's pivot to a famous artist. When I died, and back to my original game, when I died, my heirs had to squabble over the 45,000 works I had left unsold. What's my name? Pablo Picasso. Okay, what was he doing that whole time with the 45,000 pieces? He was practicing pivots. He was exercising his pivot muscle. He was determining his next best hit. And so when you zoom out, okay, when you zoom out of this whole thing, you sort of realize, boil the emotion out in the sales and the business aspects of everything else. It's just a model. It's a mental model. The concept of pivoting is a framework. It's a premise of sorts. A technique that many, the buzzword aside, have been using and leveraging for centuries. What is the spoiler alert? It's you can use it too. You can use it too to fundamentally grow your business. And it's an important thing to do as well, and perhaps especially so for artists and photographers. And why? And what do most artists and photographers, quotation marks, dare I say humans, do? We turn into Chicken Little, okay? The sky is falling special. What do I mean? We pick a subject material, not based on any criteria whatsoever, other than the fact it's what we like. It's where we're geographically located. It's what we feel creatively passionate about, right? And it could be the photographing the Smoky Mountains, or it could be, I love painting flowers, so I'm just going to paint flowers, or whatever particular style you are. And we take that product to market, okay? And the minute that it's not met with worldwide praise, okay, and aplomb, we instantaneously take it as criticism. We start second guessing ourselves. My art's not good enough. I don't have enough talent. My brush strokes are muddled and lack defined composure. You start beating yourself up, right? That's stage one. Stage two, you start looking for people to blame. Well, art just doesn't sell online. Instagram's ruined the art industry with all these cheap photos. The market is simply not buying art. Or, if you're a customer of ours, you start blaming the software, you start blaming the education. You're looking for someone to blame, right? You never take into consideration. But what if it's not the fact that your work is not selling is not a knock on your talent, okay, or your ability to operate a camera lens, okay, and understand the rules of framing and take a compelling photo. What if it's not about your talent and it's instead, okay, about your product selection, the subject material that you're choosing, right? And that's a profound statement, and that is one a lot of artists need to learn, and a lot of photographers need to learn, and I've had to learn over my career many times. You you just naturally want to take it as criticism. You want to internalize it. And guess what? It might not have had anything to do with your talent. It could have just all been on your niche selection, your product, your lack of pivoting, right? Yes, you have to have tenacity. Yes, you have to get over the fear of rejection, but you got to stay at it. You got to stay at it, right? As I was thinking about this episode, I was like, and some quick questions that I got from the live stream. Biz Razam, is pivoting would be the same as prototyping? Yes, it is. Okay. Yes, it is. It's the exact same thing. Great question. But I want to tell 3 stories to kind of take it out of the realm that we're in currently and sort of move it into a real world example, right? You have to have tenacity. Okay. You have to get over the fear of rejection and you have to keep at it. 3 stories. Story number 1. After college, okay, I had a group of guys that I would run around with. We all had jobs. We were all very single, and we would all go out to bars and clubs and house parties and all the rest. Presumably and ideally looking to meet women. I got one of my buddies, Curtis. His first job out of college was for a dialing for dollars type of like I don't even know what you would call it. Was it like equipment leasing or whatever? Doesn't matter. He had to make 500 calls a day. And so he went an entire year doing 500 calls a day. The sheer number of rejection that he received doing this, the sheer amount of times that he was rejected, heard no, was staggering. Okay. It was staggering. Turns out, though, there was a huge benefit on this one. Tremendous benefit. Let me put it this way. The first person you called to go out as a single man was Curtis. Okay. And here's why. It didn't matter what bar, what club, what situation, where we were, locally, domestically, internationally. Okay. He morphed into the expert. All right. While all of us were standing around having a drink, talking about which one of us were going to have the minerals to go over and talk to a particular group of women, he was gone already. He was gone. He was over there. He was starting the conversation, ideally merging the group and getting us all into conversations that we didn't have the minerals to go and start on our own. And his fear of rejection was just gone. The 500 calls he had to make a day, just anywhere. He was the best opener in the history of mankind. And, a phenomenal skill, a phenomenal talent. Okay. Amazing. And so he had no fear of rejection. He was willing to walk up, have any conversation anywhere at any time. It's a way to think of pivoting, right? You pivot, you get lousy feedback, you don't care, it happens all the time, you're on to the next pivot. And it's just how many times, coincidentally, he was like one of the last guys to get married, which made no sense whatsoever. Peter Pan. Come down to earth, Peter Pan. But that's one story, and it's a great story, right? The next one, I was listening to a podcast, okay? And it's why this guy calls himself Prof G. His name's Scott Galloway. He's a professor at NYU School of Business, like super tech startup guy. But he had, what I believe is like his literary agent, his book agent on, and he dropped this line, and it's just profound. So I'm gonna play it here. If you're watching on Instagram, your host, I can't get it in there. I'm having technical issues, so you're gonna have to just deal with some dead air for a second. Apologies, but listen to this.
Was this maybe 40 years ago? I went to hear a presentation by a psychologist I admired named Tom Cottle. He stood up on this stage next to a 6-foot-high stack of computer printout paper. And he opened his talk by saying, "See this stack? These are my rejection letters." And to have somebody who was such a role model for me, who I just thought everything, this guy was, every week you'd see something, and it'd be in the Atlantic or Harper's, the New York Times Magazine. There was just no end to it. And I'm thinking, geez, they must accept everything he sends in. And he's got a 6-foot-high stack of rejections, is saying, you see my published articles, what you don't see is my rejection letters.
Is that not profound? In Instagram, you missed it. Sorry, but a 6-foot-high stack of rejection letters. And, you think about the Picasso example, right? Like everyone knows Picasso, one of the most famous artists of all time, one of the most successful artists of all time, but no one ever talks about the 45,000 pieces that he died unsold with, right? Now, obviously some of those he didn't want to sell or he didn't care, but those were all pivots along the way. That was Picasso's 25-foot stack of rejection letters. Okay. You have to continually keep trying these new styles, right? I use a third example of stand-up comedy. And what do the stand-up comedians do? They book a Netflix show now. It used to be an HBO special, right? And they have that thing on the books. They have their show title, an idea of it anyway. And then what do? They take an entire year, 2 years sometimes, before that big comedy special happens. And they go and they tour all the small comedy clubs all over North America, sometimes all over Europe. And night in, night out, they're in small venues in front of small groups of people, testing the material that is going to make it into that big show. And after they've been through those 40 towns or 50 shows or whatever it is, there's a whole lot of material that doesn't make it. There's a whole lot of jokes that they told, and it was crickets. Now, the ones that did really, really well, that really killed, they're going to make it into the show. And the job over that 2-year period is to get as many jokes that can absolutely kill it, okay, into the big show. And it's no different for an artist or photographer, okay? You're going to tell some jokes that are going to bomb, okay? They're not going to go over well. They're not going to resonate. It's okay. You don't need to internalize it. It is part of the creative journey. It's an important part of the creative journey to find something that is going to work better than what you have, that is going to allow you to let go of the branch that you have currently and swing into a new one that is potentially more profitable, okay? I want to get into some artist examples, and I've got to get my screen share up and going. So if you're listening to this on the podcast after the fact, by the way, there will be some visual examples. You might want to jump onto YouTube and take a look at it. I'll put the link in the show notes. But anyway, I want to start out. So actual artist pivots, okay, both historically and collectively. And I love talking about Bill Stidham. He's been a customer forever, solid friend of Art Storefronts for years and years. And if you go back to the Art Marketing podcast, and I think this is like the first or the second or the third episode, I interviewed him. And if you're looking on the screen share, he had an original body of work that looked kind of like these. They were like figures of women painted in his style and the way that he does it. I can't remember what he called it. And it just wasn't selling. It wasn't selling. He was selling some here or there, but he was doing the show circuit. A lot of times he was, just not making enough money. And he was very close. He talks about it in depth in the podcast to hanging him up, going back to construction, doing whatever he was doing, and never just giving up on an artist. And then what did he do? He did one last pivot. And in his case, it ended up hitting a home run. He came up with what he calls his Sacred Heart series. You see it here on the screen share, and it's, find watercolor drawings of his famous rock stars, of his favorite rock stars. And he's been doing this for years and years, and he's built an incredible business. And so the whole fact that he's successful as an artist is due to a pivot. But in the perfect example of why this is a muscle, of why everyone needs to do it, the more successful you are, the more you need to be focusing on it, the more you need to be doing it, is he's pivoted again recently. And it's been an incredibly successful situation for him. So, if you're looking at the visual example, you can see he's got his Sacred Heart series, the number one thing that he's done. Well, now he's pivoted into a new series, and it's called Life Force. And it's a bunch of famous athletes that he likes, and it's a new direction for him. And here's a guy that's been painting nothing but rock stars, and you can see that those are in there. But in here, we got a painting of Santa Claus. We've got a painting of Jesus at the Last Supper. And I've seen the sales on these. I mean, these have been some of his highest, his best-selling works, right? They have taken off for him, like exploded his sales, grown his sales by 20, 30, 40% over a year period. And you look at that, and by one little pivot, by going outside of his comfort zone, by holding on to his one branch, of course, he's not changing everything, but going out and reaching for some others, right? And it could have been crickets. For him, it ended up being a home run. Again, I'm on the podcast, right? And you got Meg Knappenberger, and I remember, number one, I have a podcast episode discussing her story too. You can see it. I'll try to get those into the show notes. But originally, what was she doing? Show and fair circuit with her various different Midwest animal paintings. I'm showing some of them here on the screen share, and they were selling okay, but they weren't selling great. She was in a similar situation, like 8 hours on her feet in a day in a booth, doing a live art show, coming home dusted and exhausted, and not, going, what am I doing here? This is not working. So what did she do? Huge pivot. She swung for another branch. What did she found? She arrived at her Kansas Jayhawks. There's a whole story of that. I'm not going to get into it, but she, like Bill, is a perfect example of one that was just trying to figure it out, one that was struggling, one that was contemplating quitting it all, and then one big pivot completely launched her career. Okay. And then, just like the case of Bill, just recently, Meg's the mother of daughters. She was a huge RBG. RBG is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Meg sort of did some newsjacking, instantaneously came out with this Ruth Bader Ginsburg portrait, which, by the way, I didn't even know she did portraits. How talented is she? The thing looks insane. And so she created this, right? And it was a timely portrait because the woman had just died. Instantaneously sold the original, sold a tremendous amount of prints, right? So there's two painter examples. It's phenomenal. I look at a guy like Bill Wenzel. William Drew Photography is his business for years and years and years. He was known as, essentially the Minnesota cityscape guy, right? That's where he lives. And so he's got some incredible photos. He expanded out a little bit more and he did some more cityscapes. And his business was doing okay. It was not doing phenomenal. What did he do? He did a pivot to shooting Disney stuff. Now he's shooting Disney stuff. What's happening as a result of shooting the Disney stuff? He's grown his business incrementally, right? Like, there's a post in here. I don't know how much of this I'm supposed to show, but it shows his growth from 2017, 2018, 2019 to 20. And it has grown incredibly, right? Incredibly, as a result of the pivot of not just the cityscapes, but letting go of that branch to a certain extent and grabbing another one. He's exploded his business, right? There's another a screenshot that I'm missing, but we had another post in our recent Small Wins group talking about how someone just did another pivot, sold literally nothing the year before, and decided they were going to do a new style, did a new style, instantaneously sold the original, got a bunch of commission orders. And so, the stories abound. Okay. It is absolutely a fantastic technique. And the good news is there are micro pivots and there are macro pivots. Okay. It's all just a muscle. You can go and run the marathon, the Ironman, the Spartan race, or you can go run stairs for 20 minutes, right? A macro pivot, a micro pivot. It's all just a muscle. They all make an impact, right? The macro pivots we sort of covered, right? Like, if you've never sold anything, you've attempted, you got no feedback, people told you it was great, but when it came time for the transaction, crickets. Okay, you've probably heard, right? If you've not gotten your work in front of anybody, you have to do that first. If you have, though, and you haven't sold anything, okay, you need the macro pivot. You need a whole new subject material, and you can start by doing a bunch of quick pivots, but you need a macro pivot, right? But the other side of the coin, okay, is that there are micro pivots as well, okay? None of them have to be big sweeping changes, right? Like if you're just offering originals and you're not offering commissions, offer commissions. There's a little micro pivot. If you're offering originals and commissions, but you're not offering prints, time to offer prints, micro pivot. If you're selling your stuff on fine art paper because that's the only thing that you like and you've never tried metal, opportunity for a micro pivot to metal, right? So you can make these small ones and you can make the large ones, and you can make time sensitive pivots, right? They're smart ones. Gap, Nike, Zara, Brooks Brothers, and smaller manufacturers started making masks and scrubs given the time that we're in, right? Bicycle and sports equipment manufacturers are shifting to make protective equipment, PE, right? For frontline healthcare workers. Louis Vuitton started making hand sanitizer. Waterfield, a huge trucking company, is basically quit their logistics business and started stocking and delivering for supermarkets, right? So there's time sensitive pivots. And the idea is that you don't have to reinvent the entire wheel, throw out your entire collection. You've been a photographer for 30 years, archive all the images and start shooting new stuff and go all the way in and spend years doing it. You can do these tests quickly, laser focused, a new thing, a new thing, a new thing, a new thing, a new thing. What does it look like over those 10? I got a bunch of feedback on this one, quiet on these other ones, so you can go all in on that one, right? There's going to be a number of different ways that we're going to sort of unpack this over the time, over the coming weeks and months. But we realize that fundamentally, it's about as important a thing as you could possibly do. And it's a muscle like anything else. It's going to take time to learn how to do it. So yeah, that's the pivot. I think just talking about it, just putting the concept in most people's minds is just, it's going to be profound. It's going to be incredibly powerful. You know, it it takes time. It takes the workout day by day, though. Summer bodies, they're made in winter, right? So we all have to be working towards it. So I think that covers a pretty good introduction on the concept. We're going to be diving real deep on this on the days, weeks, months to come, and we'll start using more real world examples too. Because let me tell you, we are doing the full court, hard court press on all of our art storefront customers to do this, to contemplate this, to start putting it into action. How to think about niche selection, how to think about starting with demand and working backwards instead of taking a product to market. Start with the demand and work backwards. Also, a super foreign concept. But you know, you guys are just creators, and you have a talent, and you have an artistic talent, and a lot of you are off the mark solely because you are not pivoting. You're saying, this is what I'm creatively inspired to do. This is the only thing that I'm going to do. This is the only thing, right? This is the only thing that I'm going to do. Like, contemplate that stack of rejection letters and how high that stack of rejection letters is, and understand that is the norm to being really successful. Contemplate Picasso's 45,000 pieces, okay, that he died with, right, and could have sold probably once they knew who his name was. He didn't care. You know, those were all the various different ways to getting there. And so you could potentially argue that the strength, the success of your business, of your potential art business, might just be down to how many pivots and how quickly you can execute them. So what does that framework look like, right? Like, what does a system like that look like? How do you, one, contemplate ways to create the thing, right? And this could be, you know, starting with demand and working backwards. This could be, what type of an arbitrage do you have? What type of a unique thing do you have? Are you geographically located somewhere that only you are? Do you have access things to that only you have? Do you potentially, as you zoom out and you come to terms with this, have some other creative areas that you've always loved and been inspired by and you've never given it a shot, right? There's all these little mental frameworks that we need to be thinking about to figure this out. And you know, when you boil the emotion out of it, it's literally just a formula, right? It's a mental mode, it's a premise, it's a formula. So we're really going to be hammering that. And you know, you have no idea how awesome it is. This is one of the single solitary greatest advantages to being an artist and a photographer relative to other businesses. Okay. What does it take for you to create and test something new? Do you need a business plan? Do you need $30,000 in upfront costs? Do you need to get an injection mold from China at $3,500 to $35,000 per, right? Do you need to pay a software designer for 6 months to build a product that you can take to market? No. You can create it, you can get it in front of eyeballs, and you can get the feedback instantaneously. You can do so at such an incredible clip, many of you without even leaving your house, right? So I think after you contemplate that, after you get in that mental model, and after you realize the most successful people that are customers of ours certainly are doing this all the time. They're doing it all the time. So what do they know that you don't, right? It's just they've developed the muscle. That's it. They've developed a muscle. So I hope today's episode has sort of put the thought in your head, planted the seed on how important it is. Okay. You know, the tagline in this thing is like, why you need to start doing it yesterday. And I'm serious. You need to start doing it yesterday. And we're doing it. You should be doing it, and start thinking about it. And we're going to have a ton more content to follow. So on that note, I'll leave it there. We're definitely not done on this subject. I want to thank everybody for listening, and have a wonderful day.